turn to yourselves, colleagues, for some engagement. Over to you, SG.
Thank you very much, spokesperson of the ANC. You will see that we come to you now in full force in relation to the matter at hand of the VAT increase. Comrade Mdu is heading our parliament. Comrade Mdu is heading our parliamentary processes, but is also part of the ANC on this particular matter of the budget. Those are the faces you'll be dealing with, and the others which will be deployed from time to time by the spokesperson and the chief spokesperson, which is myself as the Secretary General, on this particular matter. So these are the guys you'll be looking for in relation to this matter. But it is important that we start from reminding you that what the ANC voted for in relation to the fiscal framework, together with other political parties. First, the fiscal framework was tabled by the Minister of Finance, and it was supported, subject to the strict condition that National Treasury facilitates the receipt of substitute revenue proposals from the committee, together with the corresponding expenditure savings that will form the basis of an alternative revenue instead of one, the proposed 0.5% point increase in value-added tax for 2025-2026 financial year, effective from the 1st of May 2025 in respect of 2026 financial year, effective from the 1st of May 2025, which we relate to here that serious concerns were raised. And the failure to adjust personal income tax brackets in line with the higher of the actual CPI inflation rate for 2024, or the projected CPI inflation rate for 2025 to prevent bracket creep, be finalized and submitted by the committee to process within 30 days for consideration and adoption of this report by the House. So that is why the question of the court was rendered moot the day the minister came back, within the period of 30 days, responding to the submission of political parties, and having undergone this particular process and made a period of 30 days, responding to the submission of political parties, and having up for a loss, because the minister wouldn't have taken the 10 years taken if there was no court case. This is what was voted for in terms of the budget framework in Parliament. And that is why Action SA, BUSA, and others kept on harping on the question that the budget will not increase beyond the 1st of May. And that is the question that was voted for and answered in Parliament when the budget framework was actually introduced. So this is not fudged or made up. It is in the order paper of Parliament. Now, it is easy for us to forget these things and simply say that the victory belongs to others. And the question before us as the ANC has not been the question of what belongs to us in terms of victory, was what the situation we're dealing with. And we're very happy to engage the media and many other people around that particular question as the African National Congress today. The ANC, therefore, welcomes the formal withdrawal of the proposed VAT increase by the Minister of Finance and setting aside of the 2025 fiscal framework. This outcome is not a legal victory for any party, but a decisive political resolution rooted in consultation, maturity, and the guiding principles of the Freedom Charter quote unquote, the people shall govern. The ANC remains steadfast in asserting that the work of government must be shaped not by courtrooms and media spectacle, but through democratic consultation, constructive consensus building, and revolutionary responsibility to the people. The political decision to reverse the VAT increase was reached after substantive engagement between the ANC and 10 other parties in parliament, all of whom demonstrated discipline, focus, and patriotic clarity. This includes the Inkatha Freedom Party, Action SA Pan-Africanist Congress, Rise Mzansi, Build One South Africa, United Democratic Movement, Al-Jama Patriotic Alliance, Good Party, and the National Colored Congress. We salute the collective maturity shown in reaching this outcome, a moment that affirmed that political differences need not paralyze governance, and that principle to cooperation in the national interest is not only possible but necessary. We note that the Minister of Finance has communicated a new process to adopt the revised fiscal framework that will now be tabled on the 21st May 2025. We call on government to ensure that we have a rebel while ensuring the budget remains a tool for inclusive growth, job creation, and economic reconstruction. Many things were good about the budget, and we still believe it's a good budget. Now that VAT increase is off the way, we need to get down to those issues that were good in terms of the budget. It has to be a people's budget that retreat into austerity, nor sacrifice long-term transformation at the altar of technical compliance. Instead, it must be a budget that balances pro-growth policy with pro-poor spending, rooted in the developmental ethos of the Freedom Charter and the democratic values of the Constitution. That has been the main issue with regard to this budget, Working National Congress. That social spending and the austerity measures, we need to move away from that. The ANC will continue with its work to engage other political parties within the GNU as provides the fiscal framework. Our goal is to sustain the work that we started after the initial fiscal framework was tabled in Parliament and build consensus around a progressive medium-term fiscal strategy that takes out the austerity cycle into a comprehensive growth agenda. Among the key features that must be included in the revised fiscal framework are a sustained strategic shift in fiscal allocation to be biased more towards economic classifications, especially measures that will kickstart growth, that creates momentum for increased entrepreneurial activity and massive employment across the economy. Transport infrastructure, increased investment in road, rail and commuter infrastructure to unlock regional trade, reduce the cost of movement for working people, improve freight logistics by lowering costs and improving predictability of goods movement, and stimulate local economies through public investment initiatives. Zero-rated goods expansion, we still maintain that. Additional food items have been added to the VAT-free basket to reduce food insecurity and ensure direct relief for poor households. Water infrastructure and dam projects, strategic investment to boost long-term water security, particularly in drought-prone areas, ensuring both household access and agriculture viability. Healthcare funding, the employment of 9,300 health workers and 800 post-community service doctors across provinces. On basic education and teacher retention, ensure that funding is ring-fenced to retain teachers in classrooms, especially in rural and township schools, ensuring continuity in learning and the safeguarding of education gains. Continuity in learning and the safeguarding of education gains. Early childhood development, expanded allocations for early learning infrastructure, nutrition, and educator support to strengthen the foundation phase. Post-school education, the social relief of distress, SRD, grant, currently reaching more than 8.5 million people. This is a strategic step towards the long-term vision of implementing a basic income grant. The VAT reversal and the setting aside of the 2025 fiscal framework were formalized through an out-of-court settlement, endorsed as a court order by the Cape High Court on the 27th April 2025. This gave legal effect to a political consensus and ensured that the VAT increase will not automatically come into force on the 1st of May 2025. We welcome that Parliament did not concede to any procedural defects and further note that its processes were in full compliance with the Constitution and the Money Bills and Related Matters Act. However, in light of the Finance Minister's withdrawal of the Division of Revenue and Appropriation Bills and the submission of new revenue proposals, it has become necessary to legally clear the path for tabling a new budget. The Minister will now table the revised budget on the 21st May 2025, and Parliament will adjust its program to ensure full compliance and legislative timelines, finalizing the budget before the end of July 2025. Once again, the ANC has led society through a difficult moment to populist noise. We did not collapse under pressure. We listened to the people, engaged the opposition, and acted in unity with others, and not claim easy victories, to ensure that this budget remains transformative, redistributive, and growth-focused. We will not allow the National Democratic Revolution to be undermined through backdoor austerity, nor will we allow the legacy of the liberation movement to be diluted through short-term compromises. The Freedom Charter remains our lodestar, and this budget reflects that. Let the message be clear: the ANC governs for the people, with the people, and in service of the people. The revised fiscal framework should be a progressive tool that will deliver jobs, strengthen public services, and uplift the poor. As the nation prepares to celebrate Workers' Day tomorrow, the ANC will continue to defend the hard-won labor rights that generations of workers have fought for. We call on our people to join the Workers' Day rallies organized by COSATU throughout the country and other unions, and to recommit to the principles of dignity, equity, and justice in the workplace. Our steadfast rejection of the DA's attempt to use the VAT increase as a political extortion underscores this commitment. Behind the scenes, the DA was not only bargaining for budget concessions, they were pushing for a new labor regime that will allow employers to dismiss workers without due process, dismantle affirmative action, and roll back transformation. We will not relent in defending the progressive league. Never allow the working class to become collateral damage in budget negotiations. Instead, the ANC will continue to champion a growing, inclusive economy that brings more South Africans, especially young people, women, and rural communities, into the labor force with dignity and security. The DA's court challenge against the Employment Equity Act. It is not only a legal maneuver, it is a calculated political stunt launched on the eve of Workers' Day, aimed at reversing 3 decades of democratic gains. Opposed to VAT increase because they are defending the poor. The next day they wake up, they are in court, and what are they doing in court? They are attacking employment equity. What is employment equity? And who benefit out of employment equity? And why would you challenge it and want it to be reversed? It is these workers. It is the rights of the dispossessed over the years that we fought for and that we will defend. We will defend these rights even through the government of national unity, as we do today. And we will do that even tomorrow when we celebrate the Workers' Day. This is part of a broader pattern as we want ahead of 2024 elections. The DA has consistently opposed transformative legislation. The Bella Act, the NHI Act, the Expropriation Bill, and now the Employment Equity Amendment Act. Just on the eve of Workers' Day, they are in court, all of which seek to restructure power, ownership, and access in our society. The DA's hatred for transformation has become shameless. In the Western Cape, under the DA leadership, employers are advised not to comply with equity legislation, and South Africans are told not to expect preference in employment. An illegal and immoral policy that betrays the principles of common citizenship and constitutional redress. This is made worse by the DA-aligned campaigns of Solidarity and AfriForum, who tore foreign capitals like the United States to spread lies about the ANC lynching minorities, treasonous distortions that insult the spirit of unity and undermine our democratic sovereignty. And thanks to South Africans, black and white, who have come to the fore, dispelled and dismissed these lies, not only here in South Africa, even in the United States soil and in the corridors of the White House. We have done that as the ANC too, talking to people across, even in the United States, about these distortions about our country. Let us be clear, the Employment Equity Act is not an attack on anyone. It is a constitutional imperative. Its recent amendments achieved through NEDLAC consensus ensure sectoral targets that reflect regional realities, support SMMEs, and hold employers accountable in state contracts. These reforms are modest, rational, and necessary. The Freedom Charter foresaw this moment. In Clause 7, it proclaimed, "There shall be work and security." That clause called for equal pay, the right to organize, maternity leave, a national minimum wage, and protection against exploitation. It demanded the abolition of a national minimum wage, and protection against exploitation. It demanded the abolition of child labor, compound labor, and the TOT system. TOT system. That's how us, domestic workers, teachers and nurses, the ANC reaffirms all shall share in the country's wealth. The ANC congratulates the ANC-led government and the Department of Transport for a successful Easter Road safety campaign. I saw somebody disputing this even when they were presented with facts. The country is changing for the better. People are not used to good things. The carnage on the road is being reduced, and many good things are happening in our country, not horrible. Many good things are happening in our country, and things are happening. You look at the electricity. We're overcoming the difficult struggles that we've been waging against difficult, stagnant, and stubborn challenges that we've faced over the years. And one of them is this road carnage on our roads. This is a moment of both celebration and reflection. And it's not for the ANC, it's for South Africans to recognize that the call is sinking. It means me and you who are on the road, who are believing in the message. How many years after Arrive Alive was launched, that today, without a holiday, without COVID, only in COVID, I was a minister, we celebrated the reduction of road carnage because not so many people were on the road. Today, people went to Moria, they went to different parts of the country, traveling to the beaches, and they drove in our roads, and yet we register the highest number of reduction of road fatalities. And that tells a story that me and you and our people are part, who are very much part of this particular campaign and the center of it. The message is sinking. A recognition that effective government action combined with public cooperation can save lives and promote a culture of responsibility. Working together, we can do more. At the same time, we extend our heartfelt condolences to families who lost loved ones during this period. Your loss is our collective pain. We remain committed to strengthening road safety campaigns throughout the year to ensure fewer families face this sorrow. The struggle continues, and through this people's budget, we deepen the path to a more just, united, and prosperous South Africa. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Comrade SG. I will at this stage take questions. I'd like to start this side. We will direct some of the questions, most of the questions to comrades who are seated here with me. Whilst now that the SG has read the statement, the SG will come back and provide a response to some questions and also a summary. But let me take the questions. I'll start with you, my sister, to right at the corner, followed by Sunday World, followed by...
I have two questions for the ANC. What lessons has the ANC learned over this whole budget debacle? And given the opportunity to do things differently, what would the ANC do? The second one is there's been calls for the minister to resign. I'd just like to get your comment on that.
Thank you very much. Sunday World?
Thanks, Madam. My name is Mawande. Sunday World. Probably as a starting point to emphasize the question of my colleague Amanda, the last question, to be more pointed, if you say Minister Kodoma must not resign, who is the employee of the ANC, what are the reasons thereof? Do you accredit because I mean it can't be both can be right. It can't be right, the ANC can't be right and Minister Kodoma can't be right in this saga. One must be wrong, and if it is Minister Kodoma, must he fall? If you say he can't fall, must the ANC fall? And then what is the update on the dispute lodged on the Limpopo regional issue of the SRD grant, and which will ultimately become the basic income grant? People say this is a language of a party that doesn't have a real plan to create sustainable employment, because I'm sure all of us would agree that a welfare state is not something that we should be espousing of 30 years and counting into a democratic dispensation. What do you say to those critics? It's not me, it's critics. I'm just representing their views. And then and then Mr. Balua, you also say that you will not allow the NTR to be undermined through backdoor austerity. Who is bringing this backdoor austerity? Because you see, with this marriage. All marriages are not perfect, but this one, seriously, is very toxic. But you continue with such people. Why don't you just dump the DA and see if, I'm not saying choose MKP or EFF, choose someone. By the way, I've done the numbers. You can govern without the DA, MKP, and EFF. Why don't you take that option? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I see your colleagues are fascinated, but I will proceed. It was in City Press, it was SABC, followed by...
Yeah, but we need real newspapers. City Press, please.
City Press, it was SABC, followed by...
Yeah, but we need real newspapers. City Press, please.
If the ANC, I mean, if the DA and the EFF they didn't oppose this, the fiscal, now come back to the way. Are you now come back to the way? Are you saying to the voters that you can't govern on your own despite having the experience of 30 years? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will pause it here and take responses, after which we will then proceed in that particular direction. I'm going to ask Comrade Zuksis, after which we will then proceed in that particular direction. I'm going to ask Comrade Zuko to tackle, to get started, including the matter of the austerity that's been ventilated.
Okay, thanks, Comrade Mahle.
The austerity that's been ventilated.
Okay, thanks, Comrade Mahle. Some of these questions are categorical statements. They are really political arguments, some of which are factually flawed. You want us to get back to the sequence of who was the first person to object to the VAT increase. Now, it's going to be a very tricky exercise to do that, to walk into a cabinet meeting and say, no, it's Mahlengi who said no. But you want to rely on the first person to write on Twitter that they rejected the VAT increase. It's not a sustainable way to deal with public policy. All political organizations rejected the 2% VAT increase. It's a fact. That is why the 19th February budget was postponed. It was not at the behest of any court action. It was an agreement amongst all political parties led by the Deputy President that Cabinet does not agree with the proposal by the National Treasury. Now we're dealing with a legacy problem here, and different sections of South African society have been making different arguments about it. The question must be posed whether people want Luthuli House to set the budget, or any other political headquarters, and have a national treasury that effectively receives a balance sheet from someone else and it merely goes to communicate it. We can discuss the process design and how weak it has been. But what has happened over there is that the National Treasury would come to Cabinet to present a proposal of the budget, including on tax adjustments, which is what happened this time around. Now, everyone was uncomfortable with that 2%. It's quite clear now, Amanda, that that approach of the National Treasury coming to Cabinet on the eve of presenting the budget speech is no longer workable. So that's the one part that the ANC has agreed that it has got to change completely. And I think the Minister of Finance also made that point, that even for the 21st of May one, they will have to have a much more extended consultation process. Our argument, for instance, as the ANC, is that the budget consultation process will have to have a longer lead period, starting from the period of the MTPPS. So once Treasury announces the medium-term budget policy statement, we have no choice but to start getting into the political process of discussing with everyone in Parliament on what that will look like. It's the effect of democratizing a process that has been working in a different institutional manner since 1994. So there are positives to this and there are negatives, of course, because it delayed us. But it's good that everyone now knows about the budget process and they can actually express themselves fully. It's a positive note. Many South Africans didn't know that actually when the Minister of Finance speaks in February, that's not the final budget, that there is quite a longer process that follows. So it's a good thing. Everyone has learned out of this. That's the positive. We will have to follow through with that consultation so that we don't get ourselves into this. Who wants to bring austerity via the back door? If you read the budget proposals that were raised by some political parties, including the Democratic Alliance, for instance, if you read through their document, there are a lot of austere measures that they proposed there. So in order to balance the budget, they were arguing that there must be reduction on the expenditure side. So that's essentially the point that the SG was raising, that yes, we are in a bit of a conundrum, but we can't afford to have a budget deal that includes locking us into austerity. And that's the position that the ANC made even to the National Treasury when it was making its representations. Natasha says we say Treasury must move away from austerity measures. And the Minister of Finance says they won't go to the markets. What other route should they take? I won't venture into the risk of tabling the budget before the 21st of May. But there are many other proposals that have been submitted to the National Treasury as well about how they can approach this thing. To have a budget that is not austere, but also keeps us within a respectable debt management level. So, but the Minister of Finance will definitely come through. There might be a debate about whether he can maintain the real or nominal increases that were in the other budget that he tabled. I'm sure they are working on that to calibrate the numbers, but the idea is that there must be no reduction on the areas of expenditure that the SG had outlined on issues of infrastructure, on education, on health, and so on. So I think on that one we're fine. Norman, I think I've answered the point about who listened when. The 2% VAT increase was not rejected through a court. It was a clear political resistance at the time. And the ANC does not need anyone to supervise it to reject anything. And that is why this rejection happened. And I must also make the point that the VAT increase has not been a permanent feature of our budget since 1994. The one that came was the 2018 one. This was the second one. So it must not be as though there's been too many VAT increases that the ANC just simply rolled over and allowed to pass. There's only been one VAT increase that the ANC has actually allowed to pass. It's the 2018 one. So the argument that the ANC has a track record of allowing VAT to... In fact, one of the unstated things in the ANC was to never touch VAT, either in reduction or increasing it. That's why it remained at that 14% level for a very long time. It was almost an unproclaimed consensus that you don't go there. That is why even ANC leaders were quite categorical in saying, don't go there. But there's a lot of difficulties that we still need to get into about which tax brackets do you adjust and which ones do you not. One of the things that you keep ignoring is the one that relates to you sitting here, the bracket creep. I had thought that you would be a spokesperson for yourself, Mawande, and not other people, and say, we welcome the fact that the ANC is committing to adjusting the bracket creep. And if you notice, no one took the bracket creep issue to court. It was not part of the court papers. But when the ANC had that agreement with political parties, it had included it on the agreement that it's not only just the review of VAT, but it's also a review of the bracket creep. The unfortunate part is that public discourse became very VAT-centric, and the larger tax policy issues were left unattended to. So on that front, I think, Comrade Mafeng, I've done my part on the technical issues. Thank you very much.
If I may just ask her to speak to the basic income grant
yes.
Yes, the whole issue about the policy pathway.
I'm going to send Mawande done by the World Bank on this thing and the IMF.
No,
so that the critics can understand that ANC logic is not strange. The basic income grant is to achieve a simple thing. It is targeted at those who are of working age, who are able-bodied and therefore are willing to work. One of the issues that has been considered is whether for those who are income poor, is it not expensive to even look for employment? I'll give you an example about you and I. We come from villages in the middle of nowhere. You will have to trek to Mthatha or East London or PE or Durban or Gauteng if you are going to look for a job. How are you going to do that? That's essentially what the basic income grant is about. It's a means-tested grant and it has a lock-in period. So people get into it for a particular period of time and they have to demonstrate that they are actually actively seeking employment. You know, when Stats SA does the unemployment statistics, they separate between that discouraged job seekers and those who are active job seekers. So the basic income grant is to get them back into that path. Now the ANC says the SRD grant is a launch pad towards that, because the same social category that is covered by the SRD grant is the one of able-bodied, willing to work, but income-poor people. So
it passed. So now is a budget. They have to find a way in which they are going to come back into the mainstream politics. So it was quite clear that the only thing that opportunistically can be exploited by them is the VAT, and they did that. But I do want to say that, so Parliament agrees that we're going to a portfolio committee, and all of us are committed to find a solution to this VAT, which really has attracted a negative, quite a serious negative.
Yeah, the people are making noise.
Oh,
Sorry.
So all of us had understood that we need a genuine conversation. That's why the ANC submitted its own input to the Minister of Finance. And I do want you to input to the Minister of Finance. And I do want you to remember, because sometimes when the Minister presented the budget, for instance, it was before the SAS Commissioner presented his own numbers. And in terms of his own numbers, we have over-collected by 9 billion. And the first conversation that we had to do with the Minister of Finance from the ANC's point of view is that the VAT 0.5% for this year is meant to fund about 13 billion rand. And had you been aware that you are going to have an additional 9 billion rand, probably you are not going to consider the VAT. Now that you have this 9 billion rand, what do we do about that? Because essentially it means it's 4 billion rand that is a major issue if we talk about this year. Especially because all of us are in agreement about a variety of interventions: strengthening SARS, fighting corruption, dealing with wastages, all of these other interventions. We all agree as political parties and as well as in Parliament that we've got to strengthen that front in order to improve the capacity of the state to generate more resources, but equally to complement the investment that is meant to take place in terms of the infrastructure. So it was quite clear that by the end of this consultation, within 30 days, because there's unanimity in Parliament, there will be a solution found. And I'm saying the easiest one was the fact that we've got an additional 9 billion that at the time when this discussion was taking place was not there. I think Zulu has dealt with the issue of how the lessons about how we must manage our processes. Now, Parliament conducted this process, a solution was found, the Minister and the National Treasurer agreed, and they went public to communicate. And when they went public to communicate, obviously those who are in court, they decided that this is not a victory for them, and they are going to have to find other means through which they are going to be part of those who celebrate the fact that the VAT has been reversed. I do want to end by saying, Comrade Maseng, honest South Africans will know that the genuine concern of the DA has not been the VAT. The VAT was a scapegoat, and unfortunately, because it's a contentious issue, they had to use it in order to reinsert themselves into a positive national conversation about the budget, about the ANC walking away from the poor and all of that. In actual reality, we all know that there's no way that poor South Africans can depend on the policy target of the DA for them to deliberate it. Thanks, Commissioner.
Thank you very much, Korifiju. Over to you, SG, particularly around the Peter Mkaba dispute. Why is the minister not resigning in this case? And I think the last one would have been those two big issues, because I see that a number of them were handled, but the SG can pick up on other issues that you wish to comment on.
I think, thank you, Mdu and Godlimbi. These are worthwhile invitees to your podcast to elaborate. Sunday World and the Sunday Times and City Press to elaborate and lunga, but I know you want me. So I'll still come, and then they will come. The point I want to raise is lessons learned. we obviously have learned that we are in uncharted waters. That's a fact. And that when you are in a coalition, you've got to engage all the time. And that's what the ANC picks up from this. The other lesson for us is that, which is uncharted waters, it's correct that the budget would have been presented and the ANC would have passed the budget by now. And in this particular instance, it means we must engage with the budget process, with political parties and everybody, because the budget is an important political tool. Local government, provincial government, and national. And the worst of all, when you have reduced the majority, there will always be others who want a stake in the budget for their constituencies. For instance, if you interrogate the DA's perspective about them saying they represent the poor, you will realize there's no poor in their opposition of the VAT increase. It's their constituency, which is largely middle strata. Okay? But nobody wants an increase of budget. Nobody. Especially VAT, because it is regressive. So there are lessons to be learned in terms of that. You call it a debacle. We call it a point of difference among political parties, which was handled very well through our democratic processes, our legislature, and all of that properly to the end. Calls for minister to resign. Ministers resign for committing major things. And I will ask a question, what did the Minister of Finance commit? Except the fact that the proposals that he brought to the fore were disputed, particularly around the VAT increase. And if you were to debate the budget in totality, you will realize that it's a good budget. And the minister was able to go backwards and actually do the right thing in terms of the processes that were actually followed. We are not going to have a situation, as much as it is the president's prerogative to have a weekend special again in our country. We are stabilizing the country, and at the same time, we will take cogent and informed decisions. It can't be when we are faced with a big challenge, like the budget debacle and impasse, the first resolution is to dismiss the minister. And those who are doing so and calling for the minister to go is political posturing. The same as the question of going to court was completely unnecessary because all matters could have been settled outside court. And the question we ask to the DA is that, how are you going to contend with the budget that you are in government that you did not support if the budget were to be implemented? Of course, it will call into question morally their continued participation in the GNU, because you can't be in the GNU to support a budget that you don't agree with. To us, it's not a make or break, it's a principled question that any political party that participates in the GNU will have to answer. The ANC is not in a hurry to dismiss people from the GNU, neither are we afraid about their presence. And we have never distorted nor seek to sugarcoat what GNU is. GNU is not a melting pot of political parties. It will continue to have these features of parties who are within it but disagree on policy issues, and that includes the DA. They'll continue to push for that. Even if you replace the DA, doesn't mean that the replacement is going to be aligned to the ANC. Those political parties are opposed to us. And then it doesn't mean that if you were to say go away and then the other party must come in, You can call them by names. They are not going to come there and change their identity and become African National Congress. Except one party that claims that it is ANC. It is on the path of winning back the ANC through the back door, led by one old man in this country. But the rest are not sharing the same perspective with the ANC. You say that the minister caused a mess. He didn't cause a mess. We went, for the first time, I went with Mahlenge to Parliament, and we were told right on the doorstep, like all of you, that the budget has been postponed because we need more time to negotiate and to engage with the budget. And the minister was ready to present the budget, and so that had to be reversed. And by the way, other political parties, shame, they didn't provide anything in relation to the content of the budget. Those who are in opposition today and who went to court, except to say replace this one and then we can talk. Political parties that we negotiated and engaged with the budget. And then engaged with the budget did not come with conditions that we want leadership in the GNU. And I had some sweeping statement that we promised people positions. It's not correct. People argued their case in relation to the VAT increase. The backdoor austerity was addressed. SRD grant was addressed. Marriage, why don't we get out of it? We don't have a marriage with anyone. We don't have a marriage with the DA or any other political party. That is why anytime if they want to walk away, they can. The DA can walk away, any political party in the GNU can. And then we will then address the question of what happens when they've left. Do we lock the doors and then we say that they've gone and therefore let's see for ourselves? It doesn't work like that. So there's no marriage there. If there was a marriage wreck and all of that, it will mean that in terms of the statement of intent, we have agreed that we will not oppose each other. That's not correct. The DA, albeit incorrect, they're trying to do and play a role of being in government and being in opposition. They are finding it difficult to negotiate the two. That's what they are doing as a political party, and all the time the DA is opposed to something, it represents their colors, their ideology, who they are. That's why they are opposed to employment equity. Why are you surprised? We have said that during the election campaign, and it's for everybody and South Africans to see them for who they are. But for the constituency that they represent, that believes that they do the right thing, they will continue to support them. And the expression of that voice of the DA is through the media. That project that the DA, for instance, is doing the right thing and at the same time is representing the poor. You must go deeper and ask them, in this VAT increase, which poor are you representing and how? They wouldn't actually explain that to you. We are scathing against the DA. We are not scathing against the DA. We are presenting you with facts. And I wish to repeat this point. When the fiscal framework was tabled, you did not pay attention to this point. I wish to repeat it. The committee recommends that alternative revenue proposals and expenditure savings to balance the 28 billion shortfall, which must effectively suspend the proposed increases, be finalized and submitted by the committee to process within 30 days for consideration and adoption of the report by the House. And that is what the ANC supported in terms of the budget framework. So this notion that the courts were of assistance, which is an out-of-court settlement, again, which was formalized through an order by the judge, by the Cape High Court, You guys say in the media, for instance, and we can't argue with you about it. DA, some of you is your darling. You say that, no, they have won. And that, you give this narrative that they have not just won. Now, you relate it to the court order and say that government is being instructed. Whereas this is an undertaking to an undertaking. When the minister announced that he's withdrawing, and then it meant the court outcome itself was moot. And therefore, there was no need to continue arguing in courts about this particular matter. So then there had to be an out-of-court settlement, which is what we have understood has actually happened. By that time, a decision had already been taken. And then it is argued that it happened because government was losing in court, which is incorrect. And if you look at this particular, it is argued that it happened because government was losing in court, which is incorrect. And if you look, I was interviewed in Cape Town when the budget was postponed. What did I say? Political demands. Mdu explained part of them. Devolution, concessions, Durban and Cape Town. Who's that young man? Let me respect him, Deputy Minister. He must be given more powers. We said, and then let's discuss the budget spending review. We said these issues are on the agenda, we can resolve them beyond the budget. This cannot stop the passing of the budget. Those are the issues that were before us. We went and met with the EFF, and they even met next to the toilets with our leadership in Cape Town. Yeah, next to the toilets there, we've got the Deputy President and Mdu. Mdu is here, right? They met with them. We asked them, which is correct, Mr. Malema is right, which is correct, that Mr. Malema in that meeting, we said to them, abstain if you are opposed. If you say that the DA is a problem. They said to the ANC, dismiss the DA and the Freedom Front Plus, we can consider that. That was the first phase. The second one, we went to meet in a meeting, face to face. They came with their expert on budget. Some guy they've employed, face to face. They came with their expert on budget. Their expert on budget. Some guy they've employed there. It's not political leader. Is their expert on these items. Now, because we are many, there are people with interest, we engage. So it's a new uncharted terrain that we're going to engage with. So they came to us, and then they said to us at the end, summarized, it's not a gossip, and they've said it even in public. The EFF, they said that, no, we want remove the DA and so and so. That is simplistic, that can be done. In fact, the DA can even expel itself out of government of national unity. That is not of interest. The question is the budget. And then they did not engage with us about the budget in terms of what they want, because if you look at the budget and the issues we have raised even in our statement here today, you will realize what we are talking about. Zugo have explained SRD in terms of a mean test policy. It is not something that was thumb-sucked. But the ANC doesn't end there. It says we implement this with a view of transitioning to a basic income grant. I mean, I think by all standards in the world, we are the biggest country that is praised for a very comprehensive social security net. It doesn't start now. It started right from 1994 in terms of our approach to this. The fact that our economy is not performing and we are producing more and more unemployment and inequality, we are unable to deal with it. It's a challenge that we need to deal with in terms of the state of the South African economy. And then, so I'm saying the scathing part by the DA does not exist. We are not into this thing because the DA was scathing against us and that they are about to claim what is right and that they fought for the poor and all of that. No. This budget to us has been the budget that is pro-poor. The only thing you take out of that budget and you argue with us is VAT increase to 0.5%. Even that 0.5% was about to address the inequalities we are faced with. Go and look at the budget. And it was circulated, not leaked. At least you've got it in your archives. So we can all read about it. And lastly, City Press, victory. When was the ANC going to listen to the public outcry? The ANC listens to the people every day, and that is why this budget was reflective of the people's interest. Come and argue with us after you have read the budget that it is not in the people's interest. Here is a fact. We have been presenting austerity measures. These political parties, you are heaping praises. Ne? They criticize government. They say you don't fund military and defense force is weak, is underfunded. Where is the money going to come from? If you implement austerity measures, how is the defense force going to be equipped? Where is the money going to come from? They heap those things all the time. Immediately when we cut on the basic needs, teachers don't increase. Health workers and all of those things do happen. They are going to come back to this ANC government and say, look at what this government is doing to you. Is this austerity measures and all of that. That's what they are going to say. So we have come to accept people who don't govern have got less responsibility and they can make all sorts of claims. We are not in a fashion parade with them. They can claim victories and everything else. We are not at war with them. They can. What we are presenting to you is the truth, which you will remember even tomorrow. It's not fake news. We are presenting to you the news, and we are telling you the truth that we are in uncharted waters, and this uncharted waters means that we must negotiate better. With it not come to the negotiations. We'll continue to talk with all parties, including the DA. We'll continue to talk with all political parties, including the EFF, and then we'll continue to talk to all political parties, if primarily those who have actually supported us. Last point you have raised, you have counted the numbers. Of course, we have explained that if the DA leaves, we'll be prepared to work with everybody. But one thing that we know is that you cannot, in every option you've got, GNU, Grand Coalition, and all of that constitute government without the ANC. The gains of our freedom. And that's why we'll oppose them. And that is what they seek to do in this arrangement that we have. And we'll oppose that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Comrade SG. I just out of, in the spirit of fairness and balance, I had made an undertaking that we will take people from this left hand. But we almost have run the full course of the so I'm going to take very quick questions, and then we will have the responses, and then the SG will close us out. I can't assist. Miss Bloom from Bloomberg. Yes, Matsale, we'll start there and we'll go this way. Yes.
My name is Tembile from Bloomberg News. I just have a curiosity about the ANC's position on the second part of the application outside of VAT. Should the VAT Act, the powers that the finance minister has in the VAT Act, and actually a number of legislation, be upheld, or should that be a different structure? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'll proceed in that particular order. Is there anybody there next to you here? Okay, if not, I'll come to yourself, my brother, and then we'll go.
Thank you very much, Somdom. SG,